It is so crazy that we have the government saying somebody is a national security risk without giving any justification. And I thought that the small government people didn't like trusting the government.
ICE seems to be targeting union members as they scramble to get deportation numbers up. That's what this report from The Intercept seems to imply. From Noah Horowitz, the title of the piece is "They Actually Had a List. ICE Arrests Workers Involved in Landmark Labor Rights Case." I don't know if I've been turned up a little bit. I'm sounding like I'm breaking a little bit at the top. I don't know. But so here's from this Intercept article. An immigration raid in western New York on Friday targeted a group of immigrants involved in a landmark statewide effort by farm workers to unionize. On Friday morning at around 9:30 a.m., federal agents in unmarked cars bearing no agency insignia pulled over a bus in Albion, New York, about 35 miles west of Rochester, and took 14 people, all employees of Lynette and Sons Farms, into custody. Several of the workers taken into custody on Friday have been active in efforts to unionize year-round employees at the company, including at least one who has spoken publicly in favor of joining the United Farm Workers of America, according to Elizabeth Strader, Director of Strategic Campaigns for UFW, the storied labor union. Strader says, "We are concerned at the appearance of targeting publicly pro-union worker leaders." And here's, just really, really the crazy part. The raid did not appear to be a broad sweep, but rather a targeted enforcement action aimed at specific people, according to sources who have been in contact with the families and spoke to The Intercept on condition of anonymity to candidly discuss a sensitive legal situation. Quote, "At first we thought they were enforcing a deportation order, that they had one person and that they are looking for, and then everyone else got dragged in. That's kind of standard," said one of the people with knowledge of the raid. "But this was strange because they actually had a list of most of the workers on the bus." The company issued a statement basically saying that they don't like how this was done and specifically denying allegations that they are responsible for the raid, saying in part, quote, "We strongly reject the United Farm Workers UFW's irresponsible and self-serving public claims suggesting that these workers were targeted in retaliation for union activity. These claims are categorically false. The detained workers are not part of a bargaining unit themselves, a fact highlighted prominently in the Lynette statement. The company made no mention, however, that the detained workers were part of a group actively seeking representation with the United Farm Workers." And so they explain the kind of context behind the raid. They say that the raid in Albion comes amid a contentious union battle at Lynette, which has included worker allegations of union busting and intimidation by owner Darren Roberts. In 2023, Roberts allegedly drove a UFW organizer off farm property and berated an employee with whom the organizer had been speaking, according to an unfair labor practice complaint filed by the union. In 2024, the union agreed to drop the complaint in exchange for guarantees from the company that would not interfere with, surveil, or interrogate workers about meeting with the UFW. But Strader said, quote, "A lot of New York growers have viciously fought against the concept of farm workers having labor rights." And so they continue talking about that in the article. It's a really good piece. Recommend folks reading it. I'm leaving out some of it. Want to push people there. Don't want to just take it. Just take the piece. But it really is, crazy. They say that Strader did decline to comment on whether the workers in Albion were specifically targeted or who may have given their names to ICE. Speaking generally, however, she said that anti-labor immigration enforcement usually occurs in two ways. Quote from Strader, "This is the idea of an individual or company using ICE by sending in tips, and then there is a different concept of the agency itself taking initiative to target workers who are organizing," Strader told The Intercept. "In this case, there is still a lot we need to learn, but I'd be alarmed about either of those options or anything in between." It's really scary. It's also worth noting that Alfred Lalo Juarez Zeffirino in Washington, another farm worker union organizer, is still in custody and was just denied bail last week. The government has finally said, after weeks of not explaining why they picked him up, that they picked him up because he had a deportation order, but the family claims they never received the deportation order, and it is just a fact that ICE is just generally unprofessional. It is not good at getting stuff out or to the right place. They have even outright forged documents before, so who knows exactly what happened. Also, I think it was either the Texas Tribune or the Texas Observer who has noted that some ICE prosecutors in Texas are literal, actual white supremacists who have been posting white supremacy on Twitter.com. We do know, however, that Lalo, like I said, is a prominent farm worker union organizer and that he has no criminal record. Zero criminal record.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
And so, as I'm seeing this and I'm thinking through it, there could be multiple reasons for targeting union organizers. Like Strader said, you could have just the kind of most villainous thing that you can think of, and honestly kind of the most straightforward thing, which is that there are companies that don't like that these immigrants are getting too uppity, and so they're letting ICE know that they're here without documentation, come and pick them up, and then ICE is doing that, right? And so that could be the case, and that's happened before. But it could also be part of ICE being lazy, right? Because the reality is, it is just a fact of the matter that there are not actually that many hardened criminals here without documentation. Okay? That is just a fact. We do not have hordes of undocumented immigrants going around killing, attacking, being violent. There's not a lot of those people, right? And it's also true that of the ones who are actually hardened criminals, gang members, they are a little bit harder to find. And so union organizers, those folks are more public, right? You've got their names in the papers sometimes being quoted. People know who they are in the community. And so if it's just a numbers game, then the people who are sticking their head outs, it's just easier to lop those heads off and to take them, right? Because they're more public. And you can pick them up and you can take them pretty easily. Whatever the reason for targeting union organizers, though, and whatever you think our immigration policy should be, going after union organizers first is bad for native-born American workers, and it's obviously bad for immigrants. What it will do to the rest of the undocumented workforce is push them further underground. It will make them less likely to protest poor wages, bad and unsafe working conditions, sexual harassment, etc., right? And we know obviously that undocumented immigrants are just generally less likely to protest and do things like that because of the precarious nature under which they reside in the United States, right? And so by pushing them further underground and making them even less likely to try to protest, that is going to degrade their already poor working conditions, and that will hurt the job market, right? If you are an American or a legal immigrant and trying to look for a job, and you have some that are unwilling to say anything at all, then that's just going to make it more difficult for folks, right? Doesn't help you. It does not help you as an American, as a human. Doing this kind of thing does not help you. More immigration news, by the way, that doesn't help anybody. Alabama graduate student Eloriza Duruti is self-deporting. The government claimed he was a national security risk, but the government never gave a reason. And so, it is so crazy that you have the government, that we have a situation where we can have the government saying somebody is a national security risk without giving any, there's no justification for it, right? And I thought that the small government people didn't like trusting the government. We weren't supposed to trust the government, but here the government is mandating that we trust them. Rumeysa Ozturk, however, this is good, but her, initial deportation is not, or her initial detainment didn't help anybody. But Rumeysa Ozturk, the Tufts University student who wrote an op-ed critical of Israel, has been released from custody by a judge after the government refused to explain how she is a security threat beyond writing an op-ed critical of Israel, which is apparently illegal in this country. And Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a union apprentice, is still in the El Salvadoran gulag, despite the Supreme Court ordering the executive branch to facilitate his return. How does any of this help Americans and American workers? The answer is that it doesn't. It's bad, it's inhumane, and it doesn't help. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.